Hello, my friend. I am very happy you are here today. Take a slow breath, allow yourself to relax, and let us travel together into the past. Today, I want to tell you the story of a boy who received only 2 years of formal education, a boy who grew up in a crowded house, a boy whose family could not afford to keep him in school. Most people would have expected very little from him. After all, how could a child with almost no education compete with scholars, scientists, and leaders? How could he change the world? But this boy refused to stop learning. He read whenever he could. He asked questions about everything. He taught himself what others learned in classrooms. And over time, that curiosity transformed his life. He would become a writer, a scientist, an inventor, a diplomate, a nation builder, and one of the most respected people in history. His name was Benjamin Franklin. But before he became famous, before he helped create a nation, before his discoveries amazed the world, he was simply a poor boy who loved books, and that love would change everything. Benjamin Franklin was born on January 17, 1706, in Boston, Massachusetts. At that time, America did not yet exist as an independent country. The land was part of the British Empire. Life was often difficult. Most people worked hard simply to survive. Benjamin's father, Josiah Franklin, made soap and candles. It was honest work, but it did not make the family rich. In fact, money was always limited. And there was another challenge. Benjamin was not an only child. He was not the second child, or the third, or even the 10th. Benjamin was the 15th child in his family. Imagine living in a house filled with so many brothers and sisters. Food had to be shared. Space had to be shared. Everything had to be shared. There was little room for luxury. Yet inside that busy home, something special was beginning to grow. Benjamin loved learning. He loved reading. He loved ideas. Whenever he found a book, he wanted to know what was inside. Every page felt like a doorway to another world. His parents noticed his intelligence. For a short time, they sent him to school. Benjamin enjoyed every moment. He learned quickly. Teachers noticed his ability. It seemed possible that he might continue his education, but reality had other plans. School cost money, and the Franklin family simply did not have enough. After only 2 years, Benjamin had to leave. He was still a child. Most children would have accepted this disappointment. Benjamin did not. He could leave school, but he would not leave learning. That decision became one of the most important choices of his life. Instead of giving up, he created his own education. He borrowed books whenever he could. He saved money to buy books. He stayed awake, reading late into the night. While other boys slept, Benjamin often sat beside candlelight turning pages. Books became his teachers. Books became his classroom. Books became his opportunity. The more he read, the more questions appeared. And the more questions appeared, the more he wanted to learn. Many years later, people would call him a genius, but Benjamin himself understood something important. His success did not begin with genius. It began with curiosity, and curiosity was becoming stronger every day. When Benjamin turned 12 years old, his father made another important decision. He sent Benjamin to work with his older brother, James. James owned a printing shop. The work was difficult. Long hours, heavy equipment, constant responsibility. But hidden inside that printing shop was something Benjamin loved. Words, newspapers, books, pamphlets. Ideas from all over the world passed through the shop every day. For Benjamin, it felt like entering a giant library. He learned how books were made, how newspapers were printed, how information traveled from one person to another. Most importantly, he continued reading. Every chance he had, every spare moment, every new publication, his education continued, not inside a classroom, but inside the world itself. And soon, Benjamin would discover that knowledge alone was not enough. He wanted something more: freedom. The freedom to choose his own future, and that desire would lead him toward the first great risk of his life. Benjamin worked in his brother's printing shop for several years. During that time, he learned valuable skills. He learned how to write, how to edit, how to communicate ideas, how to think clearly. But there was a problem. Benjamin and his brother did not get along well. James was strict. Sometimes he was harsh. Sometimes he treated Benjamin more like a servant than a younger brother. Benjamin respected knowledge, but he did not like being controlled. As the years passed, the tension between them grew. Benjamin wanted independence. He wanted the freedom to make his own choices. He wanted to build a life that belonged to him. Finally, at the age of 17, he made a decision that would change everything. He would leave Boston. It was a dangerous choice. In fact, it was against the law. Benjamin was legally bound to work for his brother. Leaving could bring serious consequences, but sometimes the desire for a better future becomes stronger than fear. One day, Benjamin quietly left. He sold some of his books to get a little money. Then he began a journey into the unknown. He traveled first to New York. The city was larger than Boston, more crowded, more exciting. Benjamin hoped to find work there, but luck was not on his side. No printing shops needed him. No opportunities appeared. Many people would have returned home. Benjamin did not. Instead, he continued south toward Philadelphia. The journey was long, much longer than most modern travelers can imagine. There were no airplanes, no trains, no cars. Benjamin traveled partly by boat and partly on foot. He faced storms, hunger, exhaustion, and uncertainty. At times, he barely knew where his next meal would come from. Yet he continued moving forward, step by step, day by day, believing that something better waited ahead. When he finally arrived in Philadelphia, he looked nothing like the successful man history would remember. His clothes were dirty. His pockets were nearly empty. He was tired, hungry, and alone. With the little money he had left, Benjamin bought 3 large rolls of bread. One roll was more than enough for a meal. Yet the baker had misunderstood his order. Now Benjamin walked through the streets carrying 2 rolls under his arms while eating the third. People looked at him curiously. Some smiled, others laughed. Among them was a young woman named Deborah Reed. She noticed the strange young man carrying too much bread. She laughed at the sight. Benjamin probably felt embarrassed, but neither of them knew something important. Years later, Deborah Reed would become his wife. Life often works in unexpected ways. Sometimes moments that seem unimportant become turning points. At the time, however, Benjamin was focused on survival. He needed work. He needed stability. He needed an opportunity. Fortunately, Philadelphia offered all 3. Benjamin found work at a printing shop. The owners quickly noticed his intelligence, his discipline, and his willingness to learn. He worked hard, very hard. People trusted him, respected him, admired his dedication. For the first time, Benjamin began to see a future taking shape, a future built not on wealth or family connections, but on knowledge, effort, and character. Then, when he was still a teenager, an unexpected opportunity appeared. The governor of Pennsylvania heard about the talented young printer. The governor was impressed. He told Benjamin that he should open his own printing business. Imagine hearing such advice when you are only 18 years old. Benjamin was excited. The governor promised support, money, connections, opportunities. Everything seemed perfect. There was only one problem. The governor was not telling the truth, and Benjamin was about to learn one of the hardest lessons of his life, a lesson about trust, a lesson about disappointment, and a lesson that would make him stronger than ever before. Benjamin believed the governor of Pennsylvania. Why wouldn't he? The governor was an important man, a respected leader, someone who seemed trustworthy. He told Benjamin that he should travel to London and buy equipment for his future printing business. He promised letters of introduction, financial support, and help getting started. To an ambitious young man, it sounded like the opportunity of a lifetime. Benjamin was excited. He imagined returning to Philadelphia with everything he needed to build his own company, a company that would finally give him independence, a company that would allow him to shape his own future. So he boarded a ship and crossed the Atlantic Ocean. The journey took weeks. The sea was rough. The conditions were uncomfortable, but Benjamin remained hopeful. He believed great opportunities were waiting for him in London. Then reality arrived, and it arrived suddenly. When Benjamin reached London, he discovered something shocking. The governor had lied. There was no financial support, no promised money, no real plan. The letters of recommendation were useless. The help he expected simply did not exist. Benjamin found himself alone in one of the largest cities in the world, far from home, far from friends, far from anyone who could help him, and he had very little money. For many people, this would have been a disaster, a reason to give up, a reason to return home. But Benjamin Franklin had already learned an important habit when life disappointed him. He looked for solutions instead of excuses. So he did what he always did. He went to work. Benjamin found employment in London's printing industry. The work was familiar. The hours were long, but every day became another opportunity to learn. He studied new techniques. He met skilled printers. He observed how large businesses operated. He read constantly. Books remained his closest companions. While some people spent their free time seeking entertainment, Benjamin spent much of his time improving himself. He believed that knowledge was an investment nobody could steal, nobody could take away, nobody could destroy. And that belief guided his life. The longer Benjamin stayed in London, the wiser he became. He learned not to depend too heavily on promises. He learned to trust actions more than words. Most importantly, he learned to trust himself. That lesson would serve him for the rest of his life. After nearly 2 years in London, Benjamin finally returned to Philadelphia, but he was no longer the same young man who had left. He had more experience, more confidence, more skills, more wisdom. Sometimes, failure becomes our greatest teacher, and Benjamin was beginning to understand that. Back in Philadelphia, he focused on a simple goal: work hard, save money, keep learning, improve every day. The formula was not complicated, but it was powerful. Benjamin worked diligently. He avoided unnecessary spending. He studied successful people. He learned from mistakes. Slowly, his future began to take shape. Then, at the age of 22, he achieved something remarkable. He opened his own printing shop. The dream that had once seemed distant was finally becoming reality. Benjamin was now his own boss. His success did not arrive through luck. It arrived through preparation, years of learning, years of effort, years of persistence. His business started small, but Benjamin approached it differently. He cared about quality. He cared about accuracy. He cared about serving customers well. People noticed. Customers returned. The business grew. And as it grew, Benjamin discovered another talent: writing. He was not only good at printing ideas, he was good at creating them. Soon he began writing articles, essays, observations about life, thoughts about society. His writing was clear, simple, practical. People enjoyed reading it. Unlike many writers, Benjamin did not try to impress readers with complicated language. He wanted ideas to be useful, easy to understand, easy to remember. That approach made him popular, and before long, he would create something that would make him famous throughout America, something that would carry his wisdom into thousands of homes, a publication called Poor Richard's Almanac. And through its pages, Benjamin Franklin would begin teaching an entire generation how to live, work, and think more wisely. Poor Richard's Almanac was a simple book. At least, it appeared simple. Every year, people bought it to see calendars, weather predictions, practical advice, and useful information. But Benjamin Franklin turned it into something much more. He filled its pages with wisdom, short sayings, simple lessons, ideas that ordinary people could apply to their lives. Readers loved it. The almanac became one of the most popular publications in America. People quoted Benjamin's advice everywhere. Farmers repeated it, merchants repeated it, families repeated it. Some of those sayings are still remembered today. One of the most famous was, "Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise." Another was, "A penny saved is a penny earned." These ideas were simple, but that was their power. Benjamin understood something important. Wisdom is only useful if people remember it, and people remember simple truths. As his publications became more successful, Benjamin's income grew. For the first time in his life, financial security was becoming possible. But something interesting happened. The more successful he became, the less interested he was in simply making money. Benjamin had a larger goal. He wanted to improve society. He wanted to make life better for ordinary people, and he believed knowledge could help achieve that goal. Most people spend their lives asking, "What can I get?" Benjamin increasingly asked, "What can I contribute?" That question changed everything. He helped create one of America's first public libraries. Today, libraries seem normal, but in Benjamin's time, books were expensive. Many people could not afford them. Knowledge often belonged only to the wealthy. Benjamin wanted to change that. He believed ordinary people deserved access to learning, so he helped create a system where books could be shared, borrowed, read, and enjoyed by everyone. It was a revolutionary idea. Thousands of people benefited, and Benjamin was only getting started. He also helped organize one of the first volunteer fire departments. At that time, fires were a constant danger. Entire neighborhoods could disappear in a single night. Benjamin believed preparation was better than panic. Instead of waiting for disaster, people should work together beforehand. The idea worked. Lives were protected, property was saved, communities became stronger. Again and again, Benjamin followed the same pattern. See a problem, study it, find a solution, share the solution, help others. That mindset became the foundation of his life. Benjamin Franklin was one of the most respected citizens in Philadelphia. He was successful, trusted, influential. Many people would have been satisfied. Many people would have slowed down. Benjamin did the opposite. His curiosity continued growing, and soon, that curiosity would lead him toward one of the greatest mysteries of the 18th century, a mystery hidden in the sky itself. Storms fascinated him. Lightning fascinated him. The enormous power of nature fascinated him. Most people simply watched thunderstorms. Benjamin asked questions. What exactly was lightning? Where did it come from? How did it work? At the time, very few people knew the answers. Scientists were only beginning to understand electricity. Much of it remained a mystery. But Benjamin suspected something remarkable. He believed lightning and electricity might be connected. It was a bold idea, a dangerous idea, and proving it would require extraordinary courage. Soon, Benjamin Franklin would conduct the experiment that made him famous around the world, an experiment that would forever connect his name with science. And with a stormy sky, Benjamin Franklin had always been curious. As a child, he asked questions about books. As a printer, he asked questions about ideas. As a businessman, he asked questions about success. Now he was asking questions about nature itself, and one question fascinated him more than almost any other. What was lightning? Today, the answer seems obvious. We learn about electricity in school. We understand storms. We understand electrical energy. But in the 18th century, much of this knowledge did not exist. Lightning remained mysterious, powerful, unpredictable. Some people even believed it was purely a supernatural force. Benjamin was not satisfied with mystery alone. He wanted evidence. He wanted understanding. He wanted answers, so he began studying electricity. At the time, scientists across Europe were conducting experiments. Benjamin carefully read their findings. He repeated experiments. He made observations. He took notes, as always. Learning became his first step. Then he noticed something interesting. The behavior of electricity seemed similar to the behavior of lightning. The more he studied, the more convinced he became. Perhaps lightning was simply a giant form of electricity. It was a bold idea, but how could he prove it? Benjamin needed evidence, and evidence would require an experiment that would later become one of the most famous scientific stories in history. In 1752, during a thunderstorm, Benjamin conducted the experiment that would make him known around the world. He flew a kite into the storm. Attached to the kite was a metal key. The wet string helped conduct electrical energy. When electrical charge traveled down the string, Benjamin observed proof that lightning and electricity were connected. The experiment became legendary, although later stories sometimes exaggerated exactly what happened. The result was clear. Benjamin's theory was correct. Lightning was electrical in nature. The discovery brought him international attention. Scientists across Europe discussed his work. Universities honored him. Important thinkers admired him. A man who had received only 2 years of formal schooling was now being recognized by some of the greatest minds in the world. But Benjamin was not interested in fame for its own sake. He immediately began asking a different question. How can this knowledge help people? That question led to one of his most important inventions, the lightning rod. Benjamin realized that if lightning could be guided safely into the ground, buildings could be protected. At the time, fires caused by lightning strikes destroyed homes, churches, and businesses. Entire communities could suffer enormous losses. The lightning rod offered a solution. A simple metal rod placed on top of a building could direct electrical energy safely away. Lives were saved, property was protected, communities became safer, and here is something remarkable. Benjamin never patented the invention. He never tried to become rich from it. He believed useful knowledge should benefit everyone. In his view, if an invention could help society, it should be shared. That philosophy guided much of his life. Again and again, Benjamin chose contribution over personal profit, and the lightning rod was only one example. His mind continued producing ideas. He invented bifocal glasses, helping people see both near and far. He improved heating systems with the Franklin stove. He designed swimming fins while thinking about how humans could move more efficiently through water. Everywhere he looked, he saw opportunities for improvement, not because he wanted recognition, but because he genuinely enjoyed solving problems. That may have been Benjamin Franklin's greatest gift. He saw challenges where others saw inconveniences. He saw possibilities where others saw limitations, and he never stopped asking how things could be made better. But now, Benjamin Franklin was known throughout America. His reputation extended across Europe. His writings were respected. His scientific discoveries were admired. His inventions were improving daily life. Most people would have considered such achievements enough. But Benjamin Franklin's most important work was still ahead of him, because the future of an entire nation was about to be decided. And Benjamin would play a central role in that story, a story about freedom, a story about independence, and a story that would change history forever. By the 1760s, Benjamin Franklin had already achieved more than most people could dream of. He was a successful businessman, a respected writer, a famous scientist, an inventor whose ideas were improving lives. He could have retired comfortably. He could have spent his remaining years reading books and enjoying the success he had earned. But Benjamin Franklin believed life was about more than personal achievement. He believed people had a responsibility to serve others, and soon, his country would need him. At that time, the American colonies were still controlled by Britain. For many years, the relationship had been relatively peaceful, but things were beginning to change. Britain faced financial problems. The government wanted more money, so new taxes were placed on the American colonies. Many colonists felt these taxes were unfair. They had no representatives in the British government, yet they were expected to obey laws they had no role in creating. The situation created frustration, then anger, then resistance. Benjamin Franklin watched these events carefully. He understood both sides. He loved Britain. Much of his life had been shaped by British culture, but he also believed ordinary people deserved a voice in government. At first, Benjamin hoped compromise was possible. He believed peace could still be preserved, so he traveled to England, not as a scientist, not as an inventor, but as a diplomat. His mission was simple: find a solution, prevent conflict, protect the future. For years, Franklin worked tirelessly. He met politicians, government officials, influential leaders. He explained the concerns of the American colonies. He argued for fairness. He argued for understanding. He argued for cooperation. But many British leaders refused to listen. The divide continued growing. The situation became more tense, and Benjamin slowly realized something painful. The relationship might not be repairable. The colonies wanted greater freedom. Britain wanted greater control. The two sides were moving farther apart. Eventually, conflict became unavoidable. In 1775, Benjamin Franklin returned to America. He was nearly 70 years old. Most people at that age were thinking about retirement. Benjamin Franklin was preparing for one of the most important chapters of his life. The American Revolution had begun. The colonies were fighting for independence. The outcome was uncertain. Failure could mean imprisonment, or worse. Yet Benjamin believed the cause was worth the risk. In 1776, leaders from the colonies gathered together. They faced a historic decision. Should they remain under British rule, or should they declare independence? The choice would change history. Benjamin Franklin joined other leaders in drafting a remarkable document, the Declaration of Independence. The document announced that the colonies were no longer part of Britain. They would become a new nation, a free nation. The decision required courage. Signing the declaration was dangerous. If the revolution failed, those who signed it could be punished as traitors. Benjamin understood the risk. Yet he signed his name anyway, not because it was safe, but because he believed it was right. At 70 years old, he was still willing to risk everything for a principle. That tells us something important about his character. Benjamin Franklin never stopped growing, never stopped learning, and never stopped serving a cause larger than himself. But declaring independence was only the beginning. Winning independence would be much harder. America faced one of the most powerful nations on earth. The colonies lacked money. They lacked supplies. They lacked powerful allies. Victory seemed uncertain, and once again, Benjamin Franklin would be asked to do something extraordinary. He would cross the Atlantic Ocean, again, not as a scientist, not as a printer, but as a diplomat, trying to save a nation. And what happened next would help determine the future of the United States forever. Benjamin Franklin was 70 years old when he accepted one of the most difficult assignments of his life. Most people at that age would have chosen comfort. They would have stayed home, spent time with family, enjoyed a peaceful retirement. Benjamin Franklin did the opposite. In 1776, he crossed the Atlantic Ocean once again. His destination was France, and the future of America might depend on what happened there. At the time, the American colonies were fighting Britain. The war was difficult. Britain had a powerful army, a powerful navy, and enormous resources. America needed help. Without allies, victory seemed unlikely. Franklin understood this. That is why he traveled to France. His mission was simple to describe, but incredibly difficult to achieve. Convince France to support the American cause. The journey itself was exhausting. Ocean travel in the 18th century was slow and dangerous. Storms were common. Comfort was limited. Yet Franklin accepted the challenge. because he believed the future of his country was worth the effort. When he arrived in France, something unexpected happened. The French people loved him. Benjamin Franklin was already famous. His scientific discoveries were known throughout Europe. His experiments with electricity had earned international respect. Many French citizens admired him. Many considered him a symbol of intelligence and wisdom. Franklin understood people well. He knew diplomacy was not only about politics, it was also about relationships, trust, communication, respect. So he listened carefully, spoke thoughtfully, and built strong connections with influential leaders. He attended meetings, hosted conversations, answered questions, and patiently explained why America deserved support. The process took years. Success did not happen overnight, but Franklin remained patient. He had spent his entire life understanding something important. Big achievements require time. Eventually, his efforts paid off. France agreed to support America. The French government provided money, weapons, ships, and soldiers. The assistance changed everything. For the American colonies, French support became one of the turning points of the war. Without it, independence might have remained only a dream. Franklin had helped secure something priceless, a chance for his country to survive. And perhaps that achievement reveals another important lesson. Benjamin Franklin's greatest contribution was not a single invention, not a single discovery, not a single book. His greatest contribution may have been his ability to bring people together, to solve problems, to build cooperation, to create opportunities where others saw obstacles. In 1783, after years of conflict, the war finally ended. America had won its independence. A peace treaty was signed, and Benjamin Franklin helped negotiate it. The boy who had once left school after only 2 years was now helping shape the future of a nation. It is an extraordinary transformation. But Benjamin Franklin's story was not finished yet. After many years abroad, he returned home to Philadelphia. He was 79 years old. Many people considered him a national hero, yet Franklin remained remarkably humble. He continued serving the public, continued sharing ideas, continued searching for ways to improve society. Then another historic challenge appeared. America had gained independence, but now it needed something equally important. A government, a system that could guide the new nation into the future. Leaders from across the country gathered together. They debated, discussed, argued, and searched for solutions. Benjamin Franklin was among them. At 81 years old, he was one of the oldest participants. Many younger leaders respected him deeply. They valued his wisdom, his experience, and his calm judgment. Franklin understood that disagreement was natural, but he also understood that cooperation was essential. Again and again, he encouraged compromise. Again and again, he encouraged unity. His voice helped bring people together during difficult moments. The result became the United States Constitution, one of the most influential political documents in history. And Benjamin Franklin helped make it possible. The curious boy who loved books had become a nation builder, but perhaps the most remarkable part of his story was not what he achieved. It was how he achieved it. Through learning, through curiosity, through service, through a lifelong commitment to growth, and even in his final years, those values never left him. As Benjamin Franklin entered the final years of his life, he had every reason to rest. He had achieved success. He had earned respect. He had helped create a nation. He had contributed to science. He had improved the lives of countless people. Most people would have been satisfied, but Benjamin Franklin remained curious until the very end. He continued reading, continued writing, continued thinking about how society could become better. One of the most admirable things about Franklin was that he never believed learning had an ending. Many people think education belongs to childhood. Benjamin believed education belonged to life. At 80 years old, he was still learning, still questioning, still growing. That mindset had guided him from the beginning, from the poor boy reading borrowed books by candlelight to the respected elder, helping shape a new nation. The same habit remained unchanged: curiosity. As his health slowly declined, Franklin spent more time reflecting on the world around him. He had witnessed enormous change. He had seen colonies become a country. He had seen scientific knowledge expand. He had watched ordinary people accomplish extraordinary things. And perhaps more than anyone, he understood that progress begins with small actions: one book, one question, one experiment, one conversation, one idea. Over time, small actions become large achievements. That had been the story of his own life. Benjamin Franklin never considered himself extraordinary as a child. He did not come from wealth. He did not receive years of formal education. He did not have powerful advantages. What he had was something much more valuable: the willingness to learn again and again, day after day, year after year. That willingness changed everything. On April 1790, Benjamin Franklin died at the age of 84. News of his death spread quickly. People across America mourned. People in France mourned. People throughout Europe remembered him. Thousands attended his funeral. They came not only to honor a scientist, not only to honor a politician, not only to honor an inventor. They came to honor a man who had dedicated his life to improving the world around him. And that is why Benjamin Franklin remains important today. Not because he was perfect. He was not. Not because every idea succeeded. Many did not. Not because every prediction proved correct. Some did not. We remember him because he showed what lifelong learning can accomplish. He showed that education does not end when school ends. He showed that curiosity can open doors. He showed that knowledge becomes most powerful when it is shared. And perhaps that is his greatest legacy. Not electricity, not invention, not politics, but the example he left behind. The example of a person who never stopped learning, a person who never stopped asking questions, a person who never stopped trying to contribute. Benjamin Franklin's story reminds us that our beginnings do not define our future. He began as a poor boy in a crowded house, a boy with only 2 years of formal schooling. Many people would have expected very little from him. Instead, he changed history, because every time life placed a limitation in front of him, he responded with learning. When he lacked education, he read books. When he lacked opportunity, he created opportunity. When he faced disappointment, he gained wisdom. When he gained knowledge, he shared it. That pattern transformed his life, and it can inspire us today. Perhaps the most powerful lesson from Benjamin Franklin is surprisingly simple. Never stop learning. No matter your age, no matter your background, no matter your circumstances, because one new idea can change a life. One new skill can open a door. One new habit can shape a future. Benjamin Franklin understood that better than most people, and more than 200 years later, his example still speaks to us. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of Benjamin Franklin. What part of his story inspired you the most? Was it the boy who educated himself through books? The young man who left home searching for opportunity? The inventor who used knowledge to help others? Or the leader who helped build a nation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy learning English through inspiring historical stories, please subscribe and join us for more journeys into the lives of remarkable people from history. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and never stop growing.